Guys, what if the Ripple CEO just stepped up and basically confirmed that XRP holders who stay patient through this wild ride are going to be in a seriously happy place, not just soon, but looking at potentially life-changing upside by the end of the decade? On this very day in March 2026, with the world still navigating oil market pressures and that huge global shift toward faster neutral ways of moving money across borders, Brad Garlinghouse dropped words that feel like a direct rocket boost for everyone who's been holding strong. He called 2026 another defining year and made it crystal clear that XRP sits right at the heart of payments, custody, liquidity, and treasury management with massive opportunity ahead. And here's the part that has the community buzzing louder than ever. He straight up told investors that if you stick with it for the next 5 years, you're going to be very happy with where things land. Think about that for a second. While short-term noise has everyone second-guessing, the guy leading the charge is painting a picture of real sustained growth that could push XRP to levels. Analysts are already floating at $3 to $8 this year alone, with some forward-looking speculation whispering even higher multiples as the utility scales up globally. I wasn't expecting this level of bold long-term conviction today, but it hits different, and the usual doubters out there, they're definitely not going to like how this narrative is unfolding. Before we dive any deeper, just a quick disclaimer. This is all for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not financial advice in any way. Always do your own research, consider your personal situation, and consult with qualified professionals before making any decisions with your money. What we're witnessing right now is years of quiet behind-the-scenes building finally hitting its stride in the most powerful way. And today, I'm connecting every single dot for you so you can clearly see why this moment matters so much for XRP holders like us. We're talking real-world utility exploding in directions that go far beyond the daily price charts and market volatility, positioning XRP as that neutral, unstoppable bridge the entire financial system has been quietly waiting for. This isn't just another quick recap of headlines. It's the full connected picture of how these developments are lining up to make XRP the asset that was literally engineered for exactly this kind of multipolar, high-volume world we're stepping into. And yeah, the hype feels real because the fundamentals underneath it all are stronger and more aligned than they've ever been. First off, let's talk about what the Ripple CEO just laid out, because this is the spark that's got the whole space buzzing louder than usual. Brad Garlinghouse came right out and declared that 2026 is shaping up to be another defining year for the entire operation, with XRP sitting smack in the center of payments, custody, liquidity, and treasury management. He didn't hold back or soften it at all. There's a huge opportunity ahead, and the team is laser focused on making sure XRP drives every part of it. Think about that for a second. While everyone else stays glued to short-term candles, debating which blockchain might be a tiny bit faster on paper, the guy actually steering the ship is zeroed in on embedding XRP into the real infrastructure that moves trillions upon trillions of value around the planet every single year. That's not vague speculation or wishful thinking. That's concrete strategy unfolding in real time, backed by years of partnerships, regulatory wins, and on-the-ground expansion that positions XRP to handle the kind of global flows most other assets can only dream about. When the CEO speaks like this, especially tying it directly to XRP being at the absolute core, it sends a clear message that the focus isn't on hype cycles, but on building the plumbing that powers the next era of finance. And that kind of leadership creates the kind of momentum that eventually shows up in price discovery on a much bigger scale. Here's where it gets really interesting, guys, and where the dots start connecting in ways that make everything click. This momentum isn't coming out of nowhere or appearing overnight. Remember those historic oil deals we've been watching unfold between India and the UAE? They've been routing entire crude transactions completely in local currencies, moving from rupees straight to dirhams, settled instantly on the XRP ledger without ever touching the traditional dollar rails at all. No more pre-funding billions in those Nostro accounts that sit idle for days on end, tying up capital that could be working elsewhere. No more swift delays that eat up time and add hefty fees that eat into profits. Instead, you get true on-demand liquidity that converts whatever currency the buyer is using, whether yuan or rupees or anything else, into XRP on the ledger, and then instantly to whatever the seller needs, all in 3 to 5 seconds flat. And fresh reports keep surfacing that this isn't some isolated test. It's part of a much bigger BRICS-driven shift away from old dollar dominance, where a neutral, borderless technology like XRP steps in as the perfect, efficient bridge everyone can actually trust and use without picking sides. Now connect that straight to what the CEO is signaling today with his defining year message. XRP was literally built precisely for these illiquid multi-currency corridors where traditional banking rails lock up enormous amounts of capital and slow everything down to a crawl. In a world where oil exporters want to invoice and get paid in their own local currency, but still need that instant dollar-level liquidity working quietly in the background, you don't need every single bank pair to maintain direct, expensive relationships anymore. You just need one. Fast, compliant, decentralized asset that market makers and treasury desks can rely on to balance the flow seamlessly. That's XRP through and through. It's neutral by design, not controlled by any single government or central bank. And it's already compliant after years of hard-won regulatory clarity in the US, plus deep partnerships stretching across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Central banks and major payment providers are already actively piloting it for exactly these kinds of energy and trade routes. And it integrates smoothly with emerging CBDCs like the digital yuan or the e-rupee, creating a system that's flexible enough to handle whatever currency mix the world throws at it next. I mean, take a moment and really think about the second-order effects here, because this is the kind of stuff that builds quietly before it explodes into view. If this kind of bridge usage starts scaling across full BRICS energy trade routes, oil deals worth hundreds of millions could settle in seconds for fractions of a cent instead of the old 1 to 3% fees and multi-day waits that drag everything down. It chips away at the long-standing petrodollar moat without forcing any nation to agree on one new reserve currency that might not suit everyone. Everybody keeps their preferred local unit of account right on the front end where it feels familiar and comfortable, but XRP quietly handles the wholesale liquidity layer in the background, keeping imbalances in check and value flowing without friction. Smart money is already seeing this coming, which explains why we're witnessing more corporate treasuries waking up to digital assets in a serious way. The CEO himself highlighted how the office of the CFO is moving past all the market swings and focusing instead on real practical utility for things like vendor payments, payroll runs, and internal cash flows, often pairing stablecoins with XRP for that perfect rebalancing act. That's exactly the kind of institutional adoption that doesn't always grab daily headlines, but quietly lays the foundation for the next sustained leg up. The kind that rewards holders who understand the bigger picture instead of chasing every little wiggle on the chart. And guys, here's the part that directly counters so much of the FUD that's still floating around out there in the noise. You know how the Bitcoin maxes and the usual critics love to paint XRP as nothing more than hopes and dreams, or claim that serious institutions would never actually touch it when they could supposedly just build their own rails from scratch. But look at the undeniable on-chain reality that's unfolding right now in plain sight. The XRP ledger's tokenized commodities value has exploded dramatically from levels around 100 million earlier this year to well over $1 billion today, representing a massive 900+% jump in just a few short months. That's not empty hype or marketing spin, that's real capital actually flowing onto the network and getting put to work. The XRP ledger now sits as the number 2 globally for tokenized commodities, ahead of several other major chains, capturing a solid 15% of the entire space. Imagine what happens when even a modest slice of the quadrillions in global energy markets and broader asset classes starts routing through here in earnest. Institutions aren't throwing money at untested, flashy technology that hasn't proven itself. They're choosing the ledger that's been battle-tested by real banks and payment systems for over a decade, with established relationships, proven compliance, and infrastructure that's already humming along reliably. This ties straight back to the CEO's vision in the most powerful way. While short-term price action might still look a bit choppy, with XRP hovering around recent levels after pulling back from last year's peaks, The underlying infrastructure is firing on all cylinders like never before. Daily successful payments on the ledger have just hit a fresh 12-month high, well above 2.7 million. Automated market maker pools are expanding rapidly. Tokenized real-world assets are surging in adoption, and Ripple's own stablecoin offering has scaled quickly to meet growing demand. The CEO isn't sitting around waiting for some perfect bull run to appear out of thin air. He's actively building out global financial plumbing, while so many others stay fixated on watching candles flicker. Recent leadership moves hitting offices across Dublin, London, Singapore, and Sydney in just a matter of days show the team embedding AI-driven tools into cash flow, forecasting, and CFO-level liquidity management, all with XRP positioned at the core. That's the kind of insider momentum you don't see every day, and it speaks volumes about where the real focus lies, far beyond temporary volatility. Now, let's zoom out on the bigger picture because this is exactly where the dots connect to why XRP holders are positioned so far ahead of the curve in ways that most people still don't fully grasp. In this emerging multipolar world where currencies like the yuan, the rupee, the riel, the dirham, and others are all competing for space, you need something truly neutral that absolutely crushes both speed and cost compared to the outdated SWIFT system everyone complains about but still relies on. XRP delivers on every front. A fixed supply that's managed with discipline, built-in burns that reduce the circulating amount with every single transaction, escrow mechanisms that release steadily and predictably, and true on-demand liquidity that completely eliminates the capital drag of traditional correspondent banking. It's ISO compliant, works hand in glove with CBDCs, and already carries the regulatory clarity that so many other projects are still fighting to achieve. Contrast that openness with the secrecy you sometimes see in other corners of the industry, and Ripple's approach stands out as the one winning over heavyweights who value trust and transparency above all. Critics love to point at short-term setbacks or claim that price has lagged behind the adoption story. That's a fair observation on the surface, but here's the deeper reality check that changes everything. Derivatives data has shown some profit-taking after recent rallies. And yes, a meaningful chunk of holders still sit on unrealized positions from earlier periods of volatility. But that's classic background noise right before the big catalyst hits. Remember the parallels from the 2017 cycle? We saw the same turbulence, the same wave of FUD from Maxis calling everything a scam or overhyped, and then the boom when real utilities started kicking in and demand followed. We're seeing an almost identical setup playing out now, except this time there's way more institutional scaffolding already in place, partnerships that have matured, and regulatory clarity that wasn't there before. Supply on major cryptocurrency exchanges is quietly thinning out, with the scarcity index flipping positive as coins steadily move into private wallets for the long haul. Basic economics tells the story clearly. Less available float combined with rising demand from tokenized flows and real-world usage equals natural upward pressure that builds over time rather than overnight. And let's address the elephant in the room head-on, the Bitcoin maxi crowd, and their recycled takes that keep circulating. You've probably seen the tweets or comments, claims that XRP is just for certain types of holders, or that institutions would never use anything tied to a private company when they could supposedly do it themselves. Come on, guys. That's not thoughtful analysis. That's pure cope from people who refuse to look at the actual data. The free market doesn't care about tribal rants or echo chambers. Institutions and banks trust proven rails that have been battle-tested for a full decade, not shiny new technology that hasn't faced real regulatory scrutiny or lived through multiple market cycles. Ripple doesn't control XRP at all. It's fully open source, powered by decentralized consensus, and even amendments get passed by community vote even when the company itself opposed them. The CEO has pointed that out time and again with complete transparency. Meanwhile, announcements from leading financial institutions on XRP exposure and ETF flows in the hundreds of millions show exactly who's moving serious capital behind the scenes. No army of bots or echo chambers can rewrite those on-chain facts, no matter how loud they get. Psychologically, this whole moment is fascinating when you step back and observe it. Amid all the global uncertainty, with oil prices spiking at times, geopolitical tensions simmering, and macro pauses creating hesitation, Smart money is quietly accumulating the assets that carry genuine utility instead of chasing memes or pure speculation. Panic sellers create the sellers. Very dips that forward-thinking holders buy into with confidence. XRP's built-in deflationary mechanics, where every transaction burns a tiny amount, combined with its bridge roll, turn that volatility into long-term opportunity. Every single tokenized commodity or oil settlement that needs fast liquidity pulls more sustained demand for the native asset. It's not going to happen overnight in some dramatic moonshot, but the velocity is clearly building towards something massive. The kind of structural shift that rewards those who stay focused on the fundamentals rather than the daily noise. Here's where it gets truly phenomenal for the long-term view, and this is the part that ties everything back to the CEO's recent statements in the most exciting way. He just reinforced that investors who stick around for the next 5 years could find themselves in a very happy place as institutional blockchain adoption accelerates across the board. Pair that with analyst targets already floating, around $3 to $8 for 2026 alone, and the picture starts sharpening in a big way. $3 that feels like peanuts when you zoom out and consider the trillions in cross-border payments and energy markets that could realistically route through the XRP ledger over time. If we capture even 10% of those tokenized value flows, we're talking hundreds of trillions in notional activity that would directly support the native asset through increased demand and the ongoing burn mechanism. That's the scale that makes short-term dips feel like minor rounding errors in the grand scheme. The kind of setup where patient holders could see the kind of returns that make holding through uncertainty feel more than worthwhile. Some community voices are even floating higher scenarios based on full-scale adoption with whispers of double-digit prices or beyond as the bridge utility captures real global flows. But the CEO's measured 5-year promise of being very happy keeps the focus grounded in real progress rather than wild speculation. Zooming out one last time to tie it all together. This isn't about chasing quick pumps or getting caught in the daily drama. It's about the profound transformation happening beneath the surface, the kind that builds real value over time. XRP as the pro bridge in a world that desperately needs neutral instant liquidity more than ever before. The CEO stepping up and nuking any remaining doubt with his clear 2026 defining year call, plus that 5-year promise that patient investors will be very happy. That's the kind of steady visionary leadership that turns regular holders into a community powered by genuine progress rather than fleeting hype. The old petrodollar era had its long run, but the XRP liquidity era is stepping up right now, leveling the playing field for nations, institutions, and everyday holders alike in ways that feel both inevitable and exciting. Imagine it playing out in real time. Oil flowing seamlessly across borders in seconds instead of days. Tokenized assets scaling from billions into the tens or hundreds of billions and beyond. Right on the ledger, corporate treasuries running smoothly on these rails without the old capital drag or delays. All of it while XRP's utility drives sustained demand through those ongoing burns and the rebalancing needs of the system. That's not empty or wild speculation. That's the clear trajectory the CEO is steering us toward with his recent comments. The one where the market noise might try to drown out the signal, but the big catalysts are already in motion and gaining speed every single day. So here's the closing thought that I want you to carry with you guys. In times like these, when volatility keeps testing everyone's patience and the headlines try to shake confidence, remember exactly why so many of us got into this space in the first place. XRP wasn't built for pure speculation or short-term flips alone. It was built for this exact moment of global realignment, where neutral efficiency matters more than ever. With the Ripple CEO out front confirming XRP at the absolute center and investors positioned to reap the rewards of staying the course through the noise, the future looks brighter and more promising than it has in a long time. We're not just holding an asset here, we're part of the infrastructure shift that's becoming inevitable, the one that could deliver the kind of upside that makes the wait feel more than justified. The transformation is here. The connections are clearer than ever, and the upside potential tied to real utility. Absolutely phenomenal when you step back and see the full picture. Until next time, keep watching for the next big confirmation. Stay patient like the CEO encourages, and remember that this is just the beginning of what could be an incredible chapter for XRP.